Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Leviticus, the 25th chapter. And the Lord Yahweh spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. And this is the Lord is going to expound on that, meaning you have to allow the land to you have to keep a land Sabbath. That's what it's saying. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. So you're going to basically till the land for 6 years, right? You can, for 6 years consecutively, you can sow, harvest, prune, so on. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord Yahweh. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. So no sowing, no harvesting. You're just going to leave the land alone for that 7th year. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest, thou shalt not reap. So anything, because you're not sowing, right? And you're not pruning. So anything that grows by itself, you're not supposed to reap it or like go and cut it and harvest it. Let me say that, right? Because when you have a harvest, you're basically like taking, the majority of what has grown in that field or that land. It says here, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, because you didn't prune it, for it is a year of rest unto the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you, for thee, and for thy servant, and for thy maid, and for thy hired servant, and for thy stranger that sojourneth with thee. What this means is, well, as it says in verse 7, and for thy cattle, and for the beasts that are in thy land, shall all the increase thereof be meat. So what that means is you can eat of the fruit that is grown, right, on the land in the Sabbath, on the sabbatical year, but you cannot harvest it. You cannot say, okay, this is the time of harvest. Now let's get the reapers. Let's go and gather the grapes off of the vine. Let's go and glean the crops. And no, you can't do that. But if there are fruits in there, food and so on, you can eat of it. And same with the animals. They can go in there and they can eat it as well. Verse 8, and thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Okay, so that's 49 years. This is now going into the law of Jubilee. So you're going to number 49 years, which is 7 Sabbaths of 7 years, right? Because the land Sabbath is every 7 years, right? And as it says here, 7 times 7 years. So that's 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year. So you number 49 years. And in the 50th year is the year of Jubilee, right? And proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. So anybody that was a servant in the year of Jubilee, they're free to be released, go back to their family. If they had any possession, they sold their possession or whatnot, which the later verses are going to expound on it, it gets returned back to them in the year of Jubilee, all right, or the year of release. And that's every 50 years. A Jubilee shall that 50th year be unto you. Ye shall not sow, neither reap that which groweth of itself in it, nor gather the grapes in it of thy vine undressed. So it'll also be like that year of a land Sabbath, same way you would treat the 7th year of during the land Sabbath. You would treat the 50th year of Jubilee just like that. For it is the Jubilee, it shall be holy unto you. Ye shall eat the increase thereof out of the field. So, like I said, you can eat the increase, but you're not supposed to harvest. In the year of this Jubilee, ye shall return every man unto his possession. You sowed land, you sold this, you sold that. It goes back to yours. It goes back to you. And if thou sell aught unto thy neighbor, or buyest aught of thy neighbor's hand, ye shall not oppress one another. And now this is going to expound on that. Okay. If you sell or you buy, this is how you handle the transaction so that nobody's being oppressed or cheated or anything like that. Verse 15, according to the number of years after the Jubilee, thou shalt buy of thy neighbor, and according to the number of years of the fruits he shall sell unto thee. So what that means is, if the Jubilee was this year, right, your calculations for, let's say you're buying a field, right, or you're buying some land, is based on the Jubilee, right? And the person selling that onto you, they calculate how much to sell onto you based on, as it says, the fruits, uh, um, basically of the years. So what that means is, if you are buying out, which technically this buying was kind of like a lease. If you're buying some land for, say, 20 years, the seller is going to say, okay, well, that's 20 years worth of harvests, right, that you're going to gain from this land, because I'm going to sell it to you for that duration of time. So that's how much I'm going to charge you in order to sell you this land for that period of time. Because if this land was mine, I would be making that amount. Say this land has, you can have, like, I don't know, it's a vineyard, right? Or it's a land of certain kind of crops. Those crops usually go every harvest for around, I don't know, 70 shekels of gold or silver. That's 70 times however many years you want to lease it out for. And that's how much I'm going to charge you, because that's how much I'm going to be missing out during that time that it's been sold on to you. That's what it means by the number of years of the fruits. So verse 16, it says, according to the multitude of years, thou shalt increase the price thereof, and according to the fewness of years, thou shalt diminish the price of it. So if somebody, well, let's finish it. It says, for according to the number of the years of the fruits, doth he sell unto thee. So if somebody was to say, okay, I wanna buy your land for until the next Jubilee, right? For 50 years. Or, something like that, right? Well, if the Jubilee, the most recent Jubilee, was 25 years ago, you're not going to say, well, you would gain 50 years worth of harvest, so I'm going to charge you 50 years worth of harvest, right? No, you're going to say, well, 25 years has already passed, so at most, you would get only 25 years worth of harvest. Therefore, that's how much I'm going to sell the land to you for. Right? That's what it means by um, um, according to the multitude of years, thou shalt increase the price thereof, or the fewness of years, you're going to diminish the price thereof. So you're not going to, rip anybody off. You go according to the estimation based on the year of the Jubilee, right? Verse, where we at? Verse 17. Ye shall not therefore oppress one another, but thou shalt fear thy God, for I am the Lord Yahweh your God. Wherefore ye shall do my statutes, and keep my judgments, and do them, and ye shall dwell in the land safely. And the land shall yield her fruit, and ye shall eat your fill, and dwell therein in safety. If you follow these, okay, if you follow these protocols the Lord has given, then this will be the benefit. And if ye shall say, what shall we eat in the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow nor gather in our increase. So if you ask, well, if we can't, harvest and sow in the 7th year, how are we going to eat? What's going to happen? Then I will command my blessing upon you in the 6th year, and it shall bring forth fruit for 3 years. So kind of like what happened in Egypt during the time of Joseph, right? The Lord is saying here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cause the 6th year, the land is going to yield to you the fruit worth 3 years, 3 years worth of crops. So it says here, and ye shall sow the 8th year, and shall eat yet of old fruit until the 9th year. So in the 6th year, right, the Lord is going to give you this harvest. In the 7th year, you're not going to be doing any planting or any sowing, right? In the 8th year, you're going to be doing some sowing. But even up in the 8th year, into the 9th year, you're still going to be eating of the crops for all the way from the 6th year, right? As it says, ye shall eat of the old store. That's how much the Lord is going to have yielded unto you in the 6th year. Verse 23, the land shall not be sold forever, for the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. That's why it's released in the year of Jubilee. The Lord is saying it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me. So really you're just leasing you're just leasing the land. So whoever's possession it is, you're not supposed to be, it's not going to be permanently sold. And in all the land of your possession, ye shall grant a redemption for the land, meaning you're going to grant the ability for the seller to buy it back. If thy brother be waxen poor, and has sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. So if somebody sells their land and their family member is rich and they can afford to buy it back, you have to allow them to be able to buy it back. They can redeem it back. And if the man have none to redeem it, so nobody is able to redeem it for him, and he himself is able to redeem it, so he has the money and he wants to buy back the land he sold, then let him count the years of the sale thereof, and restore the overplus unto the man to whom he sold it, that he may return unto his possession. So he had land, right? He had a vineyard. He sold the vineyard to somebody for like the next 20 years, right? And then 10 years later, he comes and says, hey, I want to buy back my land that I sold on to you. The person who bought it from the original owner paid 20 years worth, right, of like harvest. So when the seller is trying to buy it back, if 10 years have already gone by, the seller is going to pay the one he sold it to, when he's trying to redeem it. He's going to pay, as it says, the difference, because he sold it for 20 years. 10 years have already passed, so he's only going to pay 10 years worth, right? Yo, relax. 10 years worth in order to get his land back. It says here, verse 28, but if he be not able to restore it to him, then that which is sold shall remain in the hand of him that had bought it until the year of Jubilee. So this is the case where, say the person purchased it for like 50 years outright, and the seller is not able to buy it back, then it'll remain in the possession of the buyer until the year of Jubilee, and then it'll go back to the seller. And in the Jubilee it shall go out, and he shall return unto his possession. And if a man sell a dwelling house in a walled city, so now dealing with a actual house, if somebody sold their house and where it was is a dwelling house in a walled city, so a defensed city, right? Then he may redeem it within a whole year after it is sold. Within a full year may he redeem it, meaning he has up to a year to redeem it or buy it back. And if it be not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house that is in the walled city shall be established forever to him that bought it. Throughout his generations, it shall not go out in the Jubilee. Meaning, for this house in the walled city, if the original seller doesn't buy it back within a year, say he doesn't want it back again, after a year, it officially belongs to the buyer. It's going to stay with him, and it's not going to return to the seller in the year of Jubilee. Verse 31. But the houses of the villages shall have no wall, which have no wall round about them, shall be counted as the fields of the country. They may be redeemed, and they shall go out in the Jubilee. So concerning the village houses, which are more like inheritance based, maybe attached to land and so on, they are going to be redeemable at any time. And in the year of Jubilee, they're going to be returned back to the original owner. Notwithstanding the cities of the Levites and the houses of the cities of their possession, may the Levites redeem at any time. Likewise, for the Levites, any of their cities, any of their houses, they can buy that back whenever they want. And if a man purchase of the Levites, then the house that was sold and the city of his possession shall go out in the year of Jubilee. So when it comes to the Levites, it doesn't matter, where it is, because remember, they have suburbs where they dwell. So when it comes to the Levites, and you purchase something from them, in the year of Jubilee is going to return back to them. It says, for the houses of the cities of the Levites are their possession among the children of Israel, right? That belongs to them, the suburbs. So it has to go back to them regardless. But the field of the suburbs of their cities may not be sold, for it is their perpetual possession. So when it comes to the field of the Levites, you cannot sell that. And if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then so if you have a fellow Israelite that, like really has it, he's down bad, and it says he's fallen in decay into poverty with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. So even if he was a foreigner, one that just came into the land, for example, if you have the means, you gotta like give him a place to stay, help him get back on his feet. Take thou no usury of him or increase, but fear thy God, that thy brother may live with thee. So maybe you might have some agreement, right? Maybe you might labor or work or pay a certain amount, whatever the case is, but you're not supposed to charge interest, right? As it says on him. Verse 37, thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend him thy victuals for increase. So you're not supposed to say, oh, all right, I'm gonna lend you some money, but you got to pay me back, this amount of interest on top of it, right? Or when it says lend him victuals, that is food, that in return he has to, pay you back double or something like that. I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. And if thy brother that dwelleth by thee be waxen poor, and be sold unto thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve as a bond servant. So he can, if you have a fellow Israelite that is poor and they sell themselves or they're sold to you, you cannot treat them as a slave. That is what a bond servant is. That's a slave. But as an hired servant, and as a sojourner he shall be with thee, and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee. So 1, he would be released in the year of Jubilee. 2, you have to treat him as a hired servant. And with a hired servant, it's like an indentured servant, right? If you look up here, indentured servant is as someone who signed a contract to work for a master for a set period, in exchange for free passage to a new land and basic needs, food, house, clothes, etc., etc. Okay, so that's basically how you gotta treat a fellow Israelite that is sold onto you. And then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his fathers shall he return. That is in the year of Jubilee. He would return. Now that's if he came in with a family, right? Then he would return with them. Because we already know that there's a law on what happens if a servant comes and then you give them a wife and then they have children. When they go out, they'll go out free, right? Without those children, or else they'll stay and say they love their master, and then they'll be your servant continually. Verse 42, for they are my servants which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. they shall not be sold as bondmen, that's as slaves, because we are the servants of the Lord. Okay, so you can't be having the Lord's servants as your own slaves. Thou shalt not rule over him with vigor, but shall fear thy God. And that vigor goes into like cruelty, right? Inhumane behavior, as though he's just property. Nah, because he's an Israelite. But thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, so your slave men and slave girls or slave women, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. So if you want a slave, who you're gonna have as your actual property, they got to be a heathen. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, and this is dealing with, when you go into the word strangers here, this is dealing with the actual, like an actual heathen, right? It says here, Thawashab, sojourner, a stranger, but we know that this is dealing with a heathen and not just a foreigner, which could be an Israelite, because here it's given the green light that you can possess them as a bondman or a bondwoman, right? It says, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they beget in your land, and they shall be your possession. But we just read above that you can't do that to Israelites. So we know here the strangers are referring to heathens. Verse 46, and ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your bondmen forever, but over your brethren, the children of Israel, ye shall not rule one over another with rigor. So if you have a servant or one you bought that is an Israelite, you have to treat them with a certain level of humanity, right? You cannot treat them as your slave, your property. Verse 47, and if a sojourner or stranger wax rich by thee. So now if you have like a foreigner that comes to dwell in the land, and they become very wealthy and very rich, and thy brother, your fellow Israelite, that dwelleth by him, wax poor, and sell himself unto the stranger or sojourner by thee, or to the stock of the stranger's family. You have an Israelite that becomes poor and sells himself in as a servant to this stranger. After that he hath sold, he may be redeemed again. So the law on that is, even though he has been sold, he can be bought back. One of his brethren may redeem him, right? If they have the money, they can buy his freedom. Either his uncle or his uncle's son may redeem him, or any that is nigh of kin unto him of his family may redeem him. Or if he be able, he may redeem himself. So some way, somehow he runs into a large sum of money or something, he can buy his freedom. So that right to be able to be redeemed, it has to be there. And he shall reckon with him that bought him from the year that he was sold to him onto the year of Jubilee. So, okay, he was sold, I don't know, 5th year after the original Jubilee. So, 45 years, right? It says, and the price of his sale shall be according unto the number of years, according to the time of an hired servant shall it be with him. So, how much is the wage, or how much does it cost, right? When you have a hired servant, if you were to lose that servant, how much would you lose per year, for example? And so you would set a certain amount. Okay, I would make this is how much a hired servant is worth per year. And since you are buying your freedom, and if you weren't buying your freedom, I would have you for the next 45 years. You're going to pay me 45 years worth of, that hired servant's, worth, for example. Verse 51, if there be yet many years behind, according unto them, he shall give again the price of his redemption out of the money that he was bought for. All right, and let's read this in also it's the same thing we just described, but let's read it here in the NOT. It says, if many years still remain until the Jubilee, they will repay the proper proportion of what they received when they sold themselves. Because remember, when you're sold, somebody is buying, and when they're buying, they're paying. So if they paid 50 years worth, and now you're buying your freedom back at year 5 out of those 50 years, then you got to pay back the 45 years that you're not going to be their servant, right? So the 45 years they're losing out on, you got to pay them back. And if there remain but few years unto the year of Jubilee, then he shall count with him, and according unto his years shall he give him again the price of his redemption. So let's say you were sold and you worked for 40 years, right? If you worked for 40 years, then that means you would have had about 10 more years to work for this person before you could be free. But you're buying your redemption at this point in time. Well, since you've already worked for 40 years, you would pay them 10 years worth, and then you would get your freedom. And as a yearly hired servant shall he be with him, and the other shall not rule with vigor over him in thy sight. So that stranger is not allowed to treat this Israelite as a slave and rule inhumanely over him. And if he be not redeemed in these years, then he shall go out in the year of Jubilee, both he and his children with him. So if he was sold with his family, then and he's not able to be redeemed before the year of Jubilee, then they would have to wait until the year of Jubilee, and then they will be free. For unto me the children of Israel are servants. They are my servants, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord Yahweh your God. And that brings us to the end of the book of Leviticus, the 25th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.